So if you're one of the regulars on the channel, you may remember one of my videos from last year sharing some more information about better ways to attribute post iOS 14. Now that we're almost 6 months later than that video in a new year, how did the situation actually evolve? So in this week's video, I'll be doing a walkthrough of a live client ad account. So a live client ad account on Facebook, compare that with what we see through Google Analytics with their UTMs, and also what we see through Shopify. So comparing all three platforms, see where it makes sense in the data and see where it doesn't. My name is Justin and I'm the founder of Wizo Media, an e-commerce marketing agency specializing in elevating thriving brands by simplifying e-commerce growth. Before we get started, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, as well as turn on post notifications to be one of the first to know about these cutting edge e-commerce marketing tips posted on the channel every week. We're gonna get started through Facebook ads. So right now I'm gonna take a look at many different time periods in this video and compare these different time periods. So obviously it is very different because the thing is the late attribution with Facebook may be coming in, 7 days later than it actually comes through. So that's why with UTMs, we can't really look at a specific date. So I'm gonna look for the month of January so far. So the month of January for that client, as you can see through Facebook ads, right now, there's $1,980 spent on ads for a little over $20,000 back. So a 10.4 ROAS overall for these guys. So I'm doing pretty great on Facebook at the moment. And right now that would equal to about 375 purchases attributed to Facebook once again. Looking at that, if we head over to Google Analytics, and from there, let's make sure that we select the same period of time. So from the 1st all the way up to the 31st at this point in time. And right now, the essentially what we use in terms of UTMs are FBMKT, FB ads, as well as Facebook. So right now, it's mostly FBMKT and FB ads that we use in our ads, depending on when we actually launch them. Looking at that right here, if we just take a look at Google Analytics, we would have about 147 purchases for these two campaign source. So looking at this right here, that would mean that it's about half of what Facebook reports, right? 375, let's round it up to 150. It's less than half. It's about 40% of what Facebook reports in terms of purchases just by looking through UTMs. And now, if we bring it over to the Shopify dashboard, so from there, once you're on Shopify, you go to Analytics, Dashboard, Online Store Sessions by Traffic Source, and then let's view the reports. Actually, what we want to do right there is take a look at sales by social source. So from there, we add a filter and then we just add a source for the UTM and we put FB ads, Facebook and FBMKT, just like we did with Google ads or Google Analytics, I should say. We apply the filters and that outputs 173. So again, if we look back, same time period right here, looking back at Google Analytics, 147 on Google Analytics, 173. So a little more than 20 extra sales showing up on Facebook right there. Or actually showing that right here, there's the NA source right here. So we could take 8, but let's just round it up. There's a discrepancy of about 15 to 20 sales between UTMs on Shopify and UTMs on Google Analytics. So as you can see, there is definitely a clear, separation between what's attributed on all three of the platforms. None of those are outputting the same numbers. And this is where it gets really tricky. I'm gonna say that is a Canadian ad account. So in Canada, from what we notice, again, right now, half of our clients, it's pretty much a exact 50-50 split from clients in the US, clients in Canada. We have a couple in the UK also. From what we've seen, attribution is much worse all the time in the US than anywhere else in the world. So Canada is usually better in terms of how accurate it is across all three platforms versus, looking at the US market, where in the US market, sometimes you would see, for the same scenario, about 375 purchases on Facebook, but then you would take a look at Google Analytics and see like 70, and then it would be, all over the place throughout all platforms. So right now there's about a 40% again of the purchases attributed back on Google Analytics and closer to 50% attributed back on Shopify. Now the question that a lot of people are asking is, where is it actually accurate? Where do I look? What is the real stat? Is it Google Analytics? Is it Shopify? Is it Facebook? And the answer to that is that none of those are actually 100% accurate. The fact is that Google Analytics and Shopify UTMs are definitely not 100% accurate, and that is always has been the case even prior to iOS 14, because UTMs, basically people have to click through an exact link and it's the URL that tracks the sale. So it would have to be pretty much a direct conversion for that to happen. So for that saying, there is definitely a clear drop off all the time with UTM. So it is not the best way to track your ads results. So that leaves us with Facebook. So is Facebook the best way to attribute back? I would say still Facebook probably isn't the most accurate form of reporting as we're speaking. There are other alternative ways to report, which I can make an entirely separate video on that. We've been using Cometly and Triple Whale for some of our clients. I could be making a video on that. If you guys are interested, let me know in the comments down below and I'll make sure to record a video on these alternate platforms. But Facebook is still not 100% accurate. And there is no set thing. You know, what's set with UTM is that they always under attribute. I've never seen UTMs over attributing because it's pretty much impossible. People would have to click on the very specific URL containing that very specific UTM for that to be marked as a sale. So it very rarely over attributes. Actually, again, I've never really seen it, but it is clearly under attributing, always has been, because not everyone is on that same exact URL, you know, that's is containing, again, this UTM code. So there is a drop off, that's clear with UTMs. Those are basically under attributing. But with Facebook, it'll depend. Some of our client accounts, we can see that they're clearly over attributing some sales. Not with that one specifically, but another one I have in mind is they do wholesale through their websites. And there in no way can people actually go from ads and actually do a wholesale order. But sometimes ads will get attributed wholesale orders. We're gonna see it, you know, because the purchase conversion value for that day, it's just gonna be through the roof. You know, ROAS is gonna be 50, and that's just plainly impossible for that client. So that said, we know for a fact that for some client ad accounts, it does over attribute sales, but it's the complete opposite with some client ad accounts. So as an example, mainly within the US, it clearly under attributes. Some of the main problems we've seen within the US market specifically are that the purchase conversion value is just off. So for some reason, sometimes it doesn't report back the exact purchase conversion value. So we get for US clients lots of ghost purchases, which appear as a purchase on Facebook, but there's just no conversion value associated with them. So that happens a lot. Or we'll get purchases come through and it looks like purchases are 10, 12, 15, you know, $20, whereas the AOV that client is closer to $47 to $60 depending on the days. So that again, you know, just looking at the ads, it makes it very hard for us to optimize when attribution is all over the place. From a business owner's standpoint, it doesn't really affect you in any way when it comes to revenue. So when looking at revenue, if the ads, you know, whether the ads work or not, you should see that through Shopify. You should just see, do you get an increase in revenue? You know, how does that compare to your regular rev when you turn on the ads versus when they're off? So you should just see a trend that shows you, you know, at the end of the day, you get the same results. But from a marketer point of view, or just again, if you're a business owner that really wants to understand your stats and wants to be clear as to what channels brings that, you know, how many sales, then attribution is very important. So from a marketer standpoint, you want to know what, you know, conversions and what is the value depending on what ad sets, ads, and campaigns, because you want to know what to optimize. You don't know what to turn on, to turn off, to increase the budget, to scale, or to downscale. You want to know all of these things. So at the moment, if you do not want to invest in any of these, you know, high-end tools, it's still the best ways to compare all three platforms. Look at Google Analytics, look at Shopify, look at Facebook, and, you know, report back through all of the three platforms. See, you know, make sense out of the data. Sometimes, let's say the cost per acquisition may be pretty accurate on Facebook, but then the amount of actual purchases that you get is much more accurate on Google Analytics. And then the AOV is much better on Shopify. So again, you have to look at all three platforms. You cannot look at simply one platform anymore in 2022. It really has to be across three different platforms for you to make sense out of that data. But if you do have the resources to invest in platforms, I highly recommend you check out some of these. I've mentioned them on the channel before, but Hyros and Triple Whale. Hyros, never gave it a try personally, so I can't really comment on that platform. Triple Whale, we've been starting to use that for the past 2 weeks with one specific client ad account. I can make a video separate on that a little later, but at the moment, I can't really say, you know, what I think of the platform because it's only been, again, 2 weeks. And from what we've been told by the platform owners, it takes about a month for them to start becoming accurate with the data. And we can clearly see right now that the data is not 100% accurate from what they come out with their platform. So in summary, Your UTMs, so looking at Google Analytics and Shopify UTMs, are always going to under attribute. That's just a simple fact. So you're going to have less purchases associated with that. But the overall AOV is going to be much more accurate with these metrics. And then looking at Facebook, overall, it's usually kind of good for attributing the purchases amount. Sometimes purchase conversion value is going to be off. So definitely it's hard also to attribute these back to the ads. And that's why looking at the UTMs to see what campaigns are performing following again the UTMs will help you make some informed decisions about what to do with your Facebook ads campaign. Now, if you're an e-commerce store or brand owner making at least $20,000 to $30,000 a month with your brand, I invite you to click on the first link in the description down below and book in a very short 15-minute demo call with our team. On that call, we'll take a look at your business, take a deep dive into what you're currently doing, and if we think we can help, we'll help you scale through paid ads. If you don't think we can help, then worst comes to worst, we'll leave you with the free action plan to implement on your own. On that note, make sure you check out other videos on the channel for some more useful e-commerce marketing tips, and I'll see you guys in next week's video. Peace.